أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا مولانا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرض أرواحنا له الفداء. Respected elders, brothers, sisters, we are now discussing the line from Ziyarat Jamia Kabira, which is Muntaha al-Hilm. Muntaha al-Hilm is basically very nicely connected to what we discussed previously, immediately in the past sessions, which was وَخُزَّانَ الْعِلْمِ. So ilm and hilm, they go together very nicely. In the khutbah of Muttaqeen by Amir al-Mu'mineen, he also puts these two things together. He says, وَأَمَّا النَّهَارِ فَحُلَمَا عُلَمَا. That during the daytime, he describes the Muttaqi people, and he says that they are hulama and ulama. I won't explain that at the moment, but as you can see, even there, these two things are kept together. So there's a very close relationship between hilm and ilm, knowledge and hilm. So Muntaha al-Hilm, what is Muntaha? Muntaha is basically, again, isme makans, the place where something happens, from a different route, not the standard normal route, but from the route which we call Bab-e Ifti'al. The root of this Bab-e Ifti'al is Nahi. Muntaha comes from Nahi. Nahi is the opposite of Amr. When we say Amr bil Ma'ruf, wa Nahi anil Munkar. So Nahi means what? Nahi means to stop something or to prohibit something, to try to stop something. But when it's put into this form of Bab-e Ifti'al, it means a place in which something stops and reaches its highest level and limit. Beyond that limit and level, that thing cannot go any further. So it's the utmost level, it's the highest level, it's the pinnacle, the zenith, the summit, whatever you want to call it, but it's the topmost level of that thing. So the uppermost limit of something is its muntaha. So muntaha is the place where that thing cannot go any further. That's the topmost level of that thing. What is the topmost level? What are we talking about? We're talking about hilm. So Ahlul Bayt, you are, Assalamu alaikum, Ya Muntaha al-Hilm. Peace be upon you, O you who are the uppermost limit of hilm. Now what is hilm? Hilm is very, very important. It's a very special quality of the Imams, of course, and of course of Mu'mineen as well. Hilm is to discipline oneself in a way that the ill effects of anger and other emotions, in a way that the person, when he feels this anger and other emotions, he remains tranquil, peaceful, steadfast. So in our lives, many, many things happen, many tests, trials, tribulations, bad people come into our lives, people treat us badly, whatever it is. All of this unpleasantness, if you are able to remain tranquil, peaceful, and steadfast, and not be overcome by anger, disappointment, depression, emotions, etc., this is hilm. In English, we often call it forbearance. Okay, so the person, when he or she experiences these unpleasant, negative things, they don't become childish. They don't behave in an unwise or foolish way. They don't lose their temper. Or we can put it like this, maybe, that hilm is the perfect point of equilibrium, perfect point of balance in the faculty of anger. As we know, the soul has different faculties. One of them is the faculty of anger. So someone who has an extreme level of anger is like a bully, a brute, an animal, cruel. And someone who has a very low level of anger can be completely timid, a walkover, a pushover, someone who, can't even stick up for themselves. Both of these extremes are wrong. When you come to the exact perfect point in the middle, the equilibrium, that is called hilm. Okay. So that person has hilm, and the name of that person is Halim. So the way, if you have ilm, you are alim or alim, this person is Halim. He has extreme amount of forbearance. So he doesn't take any extreme position. He doesn't become cruel and animalistic, nor does he become timid and very weak. Neither are they totally relaxed about everything and they don't care, nor are they angry all the time and bullying and brutish. So typically, one of the signs of a forbearing person is that it is someone who does not rush to punish and take revenge from other people, despite having the ability to do so. Such a person is known as a person of Hilm or Halim. So here, what we are saying to the Ahlul Bayt is that you have reached the pinnacle and utmost level of Hilm and forbearance. Beyond this, there's no other level. Beyond this, no one can reach a higher level than this. You had reached the absolute pinnacle of Hilm. No other creature from the creatures of Allah can reach such a level. Now, as I said, Ilm and Hilm, they have a very close relationship. In the previous phrase, we had Khuzan al-Ilm. These two things, Ilm and Hilm, knowledge and forbearance, they have a very close relationship. Number one, why? Because the fruits of knowledge can never be appreciated unless they come alongside the quality of Hilm. One of the hadith states, لَن يَثْمُرَ الْعِلْمُ حَتَّى يُقَارِنَهُ الْحِلْمُ. Knowledge will never produce good results or fruits until it is accompanied by forbearance. So with forbearance, a person's knowledge actually becomes stronger, more sophisticated. And a knowledgeable person who also has forbearance will reach more profound and complete results and conclusions. Hence, you can see this in the lives of Imams, you can see this in the lives of ulama, the great ulama, who were extremely forbearing and they were very knowledgeable. When these two things come together, it produces great results. And it works both ways. So Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam has said that knowledge is the root and the origin of forbearance. And forbearance is the source of the beauty of knowledge. So you can look at it from both angles. Ilm is linked to Hilm, Hilm is linked to Ilm. In other words, these two things are very much linked and they should come together to produce the best results and outcomes. Knowledge without forbearance will not produce its best results. Forbearance without knowledge will not be a stable platform. The more you have of one, the more you need of the other, and then they work together to produce something very special. Allama Majlisi has summarized this in a very nice way. All the things that I've just said, he summarizes it in 4 points. He says, number one, when a person has knowledge, but no forbearance, so he has ilm, but no hilm, Allah takes the knowledge away. Point number two, he also reduces the impact of forbearance on such a person. That person will stop benefiting from their forbearance, because number one, either they don't have it, or the little that they have, it won't be enough. It won't have the impact that it should have. Number three, as a result, what will happen? Now, a person without forbearance, they're not a nice person to be around. They're down, they're negative, they're bitter, they're childish, they can be immature, they can be aggressive or whatever. Because the person has no longer the ability to withstand difficulties, especially difficulties in learning and studying and gaining knowledge, because the path of gaining Islamic knowledge is especially hard. It's very, very difficult. Because they don't have the ability to take those difficulties anymore, other people, such as teachers and students, they don't like that person's company. They stop hanging around with that person because either he's bitter, he's negative, he's bringing everyone down. And then the fourth point that Allama says is, as a result, people will stop benefiting from his knowledge because he's not around that environment anymore. He's not able to pass on his knowledge anymore because you have to be in that environment, And nor does he have the strength and determination to learn from others because he's given up. He hasn't got enough forbearance. He can't take all the difficulties that life is throwing at him. So now we come on to the Imams. Imams, alayhimus salam. What can we say about the Imams? Well, their forbearance was of another level altogether. Imagine, you have all that unlimited power linked to the power of Allah, all that unlimited knowledge. You can basically do anything. You could crush your enemies. You can cause all sorts of mayhem. But no, they took unbelievable amounts of punishment, imprisonment, disrespect, abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse, family abuse, abuse on their families, on their people, on their Shias. All of that abuse they took, they had the ability to maybe wipe out all of their enemies in one go, but they took it all and stayed on the obedience of Allah, respected His will, went along with His will, did not go outside of His wishes, and they did things in the way He wanted things done. Otherwise, for us, you have to say it's very difficult to take so much, not react, despite having the ability to do so, to still remain patient and forbearing in the face of so much abuse. This really requires a great and lofty personality, which is what our Imams had. And this is the thing that we are saying today. Assalamu alaikum, ya Muntaha al-Hilm. Now, it's very important we understand what forbearance is not. So we've given some examples of forbearance. Now, what is it not? Forbearance is not to remain simply idle and just take things that are unpleasant and never rise up or speak out. No, that's not what forbearance is. But it is that a person does not act rashly, hastily, childishly, foolishly. Otherwise, a person who just sits back and withstands everything, all disrespect, all dishonor, all of these things, that's not what our Imams did. They spoke out, they spoke about their rights, they spoke to people, they stood in battle, they defended themselves, they took all normal ways of acting, but they didn't go beyond the bounds of Allah's will. A person who just lays back and is resigned to all manner of unpleasant things, he has not correctly made use of the faculty of anger. Anger is there for a reason. There are righteous places to use your anger. There are righteous ways to use the anger. The one who has achieved that position of equilibrium, that middle position, they could take action. There's no issue with that. However, that action will always be accompanied with steadfastness, forbearance, restraint, wisdom, thinking, reflection. In other words, they are what we would call in Farsi, waqt shanas. They understand this is the time to act. This is the time not to act. Here there is wisdom in, going forth in being forthright in your actions. Here maybe we have to rein it in. So if you look at the lives of the Imams, you'll see this very well. I want to highlight this from one of the Imams, which is Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam. You'll see how he took the right actions at the right time. On one hand, he says things like this, Wallah, law tadhaharat al-arabu ala qitali lama wallaytu. He says, I swear by God, even if all the Arabs were to stand and fight against me in order to kill me, I still wouldn't turn back. Look how steadfast he is. Look how strong, determined. He's not just going to lay back, lie down, and let things happen. Also, فَإِنِّي لَمْ أَفَرَّ مِنَ الزَّحَفْ قَطْ. He says, I've never ran away from any battle at all. وَلَمْ يُبَارِزْنِي أَحَدٌ. No one has ever come before me to fight me. إِلَّا سَقَيْتُ الْأَرْضَ مِنْ دَمِهِ. Except that I have colored the ground with their blood. In other words, when the time comes, I will pick up a sword. I will stand and fight. Hence, he is the hero of so many battles, so many confrontations. Ali is always seen as the main hero of these things. However, at the same time, in other situations, using his wisdom, using his link with the will of Allah, he says something like this. Fara'aytu. This is in Nahj Balagha khutbah number 3, Shikshaqiya, the great famous khutbah where he describes how he was sidelined from the Khilafah, from the issue of successorship to the Holy Prophet. And what did he do? He says, Fara'aytu anna sabra ala hata ahja. I found that at that time when I had been sidelined, I found that endurance was wiser. At that time, should I have picked up a sword? No. Should I have fought? No. Should I have colored the ground with people's blood? No, no. That was a different time. There were different circumstances. The ummah was in a different position. People were in a different position. فَصَبَرْتُ وَفِي الْعَيْنِ قَضَى, the famous sentence. So I adopted patience, although there was a thorn in the eye and suffocation in the throat. I watched the plundering of my inheritance till the first one went away, meaning Abu Bakr. And then he handed over the caliphate to Ibn al-Khattab after himself, Umar, the second Khalifa. In other words, at that time, I used one action, which was not to be forthright, not to take arms, not to, fight and fight and fight. Yes, Amir al-Mu'minin and Janab Fatima, they did speak out. They did try to convince people. They did remind people of Ghadir. But that was it. There was a time when they said, you know what, now we draw a line. We've done our bit. We've done our best to convince people. This is not the time to pick up weapons and to fight. So this insan kamil, this complete human being, which is Amir al-Mu'mineen, and no doubt about it, he knows when to have patience. And he knows when to sever the evil head of greed and jealousy of the camel of Jamal. He knows when to strike the disloyal oath breakers of the Khawarij in Nahrawan. He knows when to flourish Zulfiqar upon the armies in Siffin who are pushing Islam towards kufr. He knows when to take action when politics is being mixed into religion in a dirty way with Muawiyah and Amr ibn As and these things. He knows when to stand up and speak out. He knows when it is better for the survival of Islam and Allah's wishes to not be so forthright. The same can be said of Imam Hassan's peace treaty with Muawiyah, Imam Hussein's stance to journey towards Kufa and then to Karbala, giving all that he had for Islam. And the same goes for all other Imams. Their wisdom, their knowledge, their entire view of what is happening in the world, their wisdom, their link with Allah, their link with the will of Allah, all of these things come together and they will be forbearing. Sometimes you will see them taking action. Sometimes you'll see them using their wisdom and saying, you know what? Not at the moment. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. That was wa Muntaha al-Hilm. Next session will be wa Usul al-Karam, inshallah. So now we'll go on to any questions which there are. If you can put them on chat, I'll wait as usual 30 seconds or a minute, and then we will wrap up if there's nothing. So there's one question which has come. Wisdom is a gift from Allah. Yes, it is a gift from Allah. Is that the same for Hilm? Well, Hilm and wisdom and all good things are a gift from Allah. There's nothing good in this world except that it comes from Allah. However, we have a role to play in that we have to try and gain these things. So everything is a gift from Allah if it's positive. There's only goodness in Allah, and only the good things in the world only come from Allah. It can be cultivated. You have to train yourself to be forbearing, to pause, to think, to reflect, to look at the lives of the Imams, see how they reacted, take advice from people, keep an eye on yourself, reflect maybe afterwards as well and think, could there have been a better way of doing this? But Hilm is very, very important. What is the relationship between Hilm and wisdom? Yes, that's a deeper question about Hilm and wisdom. Wisdom is extremely special, and Hilm is also extremely special, but wisdom has been singled out in the Holy Quran, that it is khairan kathira, it is abundant good. So wisdom and Hilm, obviously they go hand in hand. There's another question regarding a person who listens to knowledge and guidance but doesn't act or ignores it. Well, what is the future of such people? Well, obviously, if they are receiving guidance in a way and ignoring it, then they'll be accountable for that. They won't have an excuse in front of Allah to say, I didn't know or I was not aware. No, they will be very, very accountable to that. They will also face the consequences, meaning that it could be that they'll turn their back on knowledge and guidance to such an extent that one day it will stop. They will lose that tawfiq, they will lose that ability to receive guidance and knowledge. Could you please share the lively example of Hilm? If I've understood your question, for example, in Hilm, you see, what would happen is, for example, that you are in a situation where someone has offended you, someone has done something bad to you, someone has disrespected you or bullied you or something like that. Now, for example, after some time, the tables have turned. Now you're in a position of power and they are in a position of weakness. Do you go ahead and take revenge? Do you go ahead and, for example, do the same to them? Do you offend them the way they offended you? Do you make a spectacle of them as they made a spectacle of you? If you do, then that's not hilm, that's not forbearance. Forbearance means to take a lot of almost suffering, to take a lot of ill treatment, and then to deal with it without reacting, especially without your own self becoming upset and untranquil and these things. If you can remain in that state of tranquility and peace and serenity, then that is hilm. For example, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, you may have heard this, that on the day of Ashura, the more suffering he endured, the more nurani his face became, the more level and peaceful his breathing became, the more calm and serene he was. That's true hilm. Like nothing could upset him, nothing could really, of course he was emotionally upset, but not affecting his mind and soul and these things. Emotions are one thing, you will grieve on your children and everything, but can you remain in that tranquil state? That is hilm. There's a good question regarding the burning door incident. What did Imam Ali do and why did he do it? That is such a long answer. You'll have to really look into 4 or 5 different things to understand why Amir al-Mu'mineen did what he did at that time. But in very, very short manner, let me just say, the burning of the door incident, I don't believe we've understood it properly. I don't believe that we've understood. We think, for example, Imam Ali alayhi salam was there almost in his armor with his sword drawn, ready to attack people if the door is burned. It wasn't like that. What we understand is that Imam Ali alayhi salam was in a different part of the house. This was a sudden attack on the house, not expected. It wasn't expected to even go to this extent. And when the injuries happened, what do you do as the man of the house? Do you tend to your wife, first of all, who has just miscarried, Janabi Fatima? Do you go out and fight? There was a lot of things going on around there. But in short, it wasn't as clear as we think it is, that, you know, he was just ready to fight at a moment's notice. No, there were many things happening at that time. This one will have to leave it for you to research properly, because it's outside a little bit of the scope of what we're discussing, and the answer is very, very long. One more. In what case hilm is not allowed? You see, hilm is a very, very good thing in most situations. But if you mean that there are times when you see, hilm, even when you're, for example, picking up a sword and going out to defend Islam, for example, there still may be hilm involved in that. Yeah, you still have to restrain yourself. You still have to be very, very dignified, tranquil. For example, you know the famous story where someone spat at Amir al-Mu'mineen in the battlefield. He turned away. He turned away and he didn't kill that person, but then he came later and killed that person. When people asked him why, he said, it was possible that maybe my personal anger got involved. And I didn't want that. I wanted to do it totally ikhlasan liwajhillah, totally for the sake of Allah. So then I came back later. That is also hilm, yeah, in the battlefield. So Hilm has a wide-ranging application. However, if you mean when is it not good just to restrain yourself and do nothing? Of course, when certain inviolable rights are being violated. You have to protect someone. You have to defend yourself. You have to defend your home, your land, your country, your dignity, your honor, your religion. So all of these things it's obvious that there's a certain point in which you have to then make a stand and be active and actively involved and forthright. I like to use the word forthright instead of like just waiting and watching and seeing. This all comes down to wisdom. The quality of wisdom is very important. What to do, when, how, where, with whom, this is all wisdom. What is the best way to attain, increase, or practice Hilm? Hilm is something that can only happen through reflection and practice. To remind yourself again and again, not to react in certain situations. So for example, some people say, count to 10, have a drink of water, don't react straight away, think before you speak. All of these things are good. Yeah, all of these things train you to be more forbearing. Yeah, but the principal one, the immediate one, which I will say, is don't react immediately to things. Just take a time out, even if that time is 10 seconds. Just take a time out and think. If I do this, what will happen? If I do that, what will happen? What is my wisdom saying? And of course, more than anything, pray to Allah to grant you more hilm and more forbearance. See you next week, inshallah, everybody.